Water is one of those things where the value of it is way beyond what you pay for it. You go to the store and you get a water bottle, and it's $1. But it has a lot more purposes than just, drinking it. Most of us take water for granted. We've grown up in a house that had water in it. It had faucets and toilets and showers and sinks, and it was always just there. We've been in California since the 1800s, and we have kind of a grasp of what the typical rainfall is and so forth. But it's only less than 200 years worth of information on what kind of rainfalls we typically get.
San Diego County is a semi-arid climate, so even though we live very close to the ocean, we receive less than 11 inches of rain per year. So most average landscapes in San Diego County use between 60 and 80 inches of water per year, depending upon how much there is. So grass, lots of trees. So that, in addition to our population, means that we don't have enough water supply locally. And by local supply, we mean rainwater or groundwater that we can use. We don't have a lot of that locally, so we have to import it from outside sources.
California is a really big state, and most of the water that is dropped here typically starts up in the top of the state, up in Northern California, in the Sierras. There's also water that comes from the Colorado River, which is down in the lower portion, and it's basically not a lot of snowpack, not a lot of water being held in the reservoirs.
How we get into drought situations is we know that droughts are going to happen. We just don't get a lot of rain here in San Diego. That's why we import. So every few years, as it gets drier, we get less rain, and that's a lot what is happening this year. So in Southern California, we've averaged about 6 inches of rain this year. So this happened, we had a dry year this year, we had a dry year last year, so we've really used up a lot of our storage.
San Diego is in a unique environment where all of our water is imported. There's very few local supplies here in San Diego County, which leaves us vulnerable to being stuck without water. So having a local water supply like the desalination plant is important because it insulates you and protects you because you have that local water supply available to you at all times. The Pacific Ocean is also an unlimited reservoir at our doorstep that we're able to use. The Carlsbad Desalination Project is a 50 million gallon per day desalination plant. What that means is it will serve 7 to 10% of San Diego County's water supply when it's complete. What it does is it takes the seawater from the Pacific Ocean in Carlsbad and turns it into a high quality fresh drinking water. The process is we pull the water in, it goes through a pre-treatment, which is a sand pre-treatment. So the water is actually percolated through a silo of sand. And what that does is the sand naturally takes out any dirt, silt, seaweed, any larger particles. So then it's just a very clean seawater. So the next step is the water goes through the reverse osmosis. What reverse osmosis is it's a membrane. And so the water is pushed through the membrane at a very high pressure. And so it takes out any salt, dirt, viruses, bacteria. And so all you have left is a very pure drinking water. It's not going to harm the environment. Like I've said, we went through the permitting process. So we have permits from the City of Carlsbad, from the Coastal Commission, Regional Water Quality Control Board, Department of Health Services, for all different aspects. And so the project has been fully vetted and is very, very safe and healthy for the environment. Part of the permitting process we had to go through, we had to look at the discharge because we're just discharging our salty water. We had to look at the intake, which is where we get our seawater. And the only thing that was found is that in our intake, the water that we intake has tiny larvae in that water. It equates to the daily diet of one pelican every day, the amount of larvae that we're pulling in. And so because of that, through the permitting process, the project was required to mitigate. And so for mitigation, we will be restoring 66 acres of wetlands down in South San Diego Bay for that entrainment and impingement of the larvae each day. Desalination has been thought to be very energy intensive, that it takes a lot of energy to push the water through these membranes. But actually it's about 30% more energy to push the water through the membranes than it is to import water from Northern California. And so it's only slightly more, and because of that, we'll have solar panels on the roof at the plant. We will have energy recovery devices within the plant, and so we'll have a carbon footprint of 0 when we're done with all of the mitigation. It's just part of the pie. There's so many other things that we need to be looking at for new water supplies, and this is just desalination is just part of it. You know, the city of San Diego has looked into water reclamation for a long time, and some years ago it was, called toilet to tap. But the problem with that is it's very hard for people to accept that it's safe, but it is very safe to take used water from homes and treat it to the point where it can be reused to brush your teeth, to drink, to for all of those things.
And a lot of people get, uptight over the yuck factor of going, oh, goodness gracious, toilet to tap. That's nasty. I don't want to drink that. Well, I think the biggest deal is that it's, that the water is recycled. It always is. You've seen the cycle with the evaporation and the clouds and the precipitation, and it just cycles around. And so it's always like that, and it always will be. That water moves and gets treated, and that it's really nothing to be afraid of. It's been like that, for, since the dawn of time. Water takes different forms and moves around and has a water cycle, and just because it's a treated man-made cycle, it's really not any different. You want to have some diversity. We've got water from Northern California, we've got it from the Colorado River, we've got the local rainfall that we get, we've got the water conservation that we do.
There's a lot of potential for new technology to be used in water, to treat it, to store it, to move it. If you're only pulling from one place, if you get a drought on your system, you're going to be really curtailed in the amount of water that you have available. But we have done a very good job in San Diego County of diversifying. So in 1991, we were purchasing all of our water from one place. All of the water that came into San Diego came from Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. There was a really bad drought in the early 90s. Our water was cut back, or on the verge of being cut back by about 50%. So we started diversifying. So as I mentioned, we went out to a couple of water districts in the Imperial Valley, and we started procuring more water from the Colorado River. But we really started being more aggressive with our recycled water and our IPR and our DPR. So then 2020, we're still moving towards there, getting more water from Imperial Irrigation District, adding in seawater desalination, really trying to expand some of our existing projects, but also really increasing conservation. So this technically really isn't a part of the pie. It is conservation, so the more that people conserve, the less we have to procure.
There's a lot of things people can do that aren't really difficult for them to do. We have rebates available for people for different things. One of the easiest things is to have a high efficiency toilet, high efficiency clothes washer, low flow shower heads, low flow sink aerators. Clothes washers, they have those that can be really efficient. You're just throwing your clothes in the washing machine. You care that they come out clean. It really doesn't matter how much water goes into it. Separately from that is we have rebates for people to switch out their landscaping. One of my coworkers made a really great statement one time. She said, if the only time you go on your grass is when you go out there to mow it, that's the only time you'll go on it, then you may want to rethink that. And so there's lots of different landscapes people can put in, and we have rebates available for people to take out their high water use turf and put in low water use plants that'll use much less water and or survive on just the local rainfall that we get here in San Diego.
55% of your home's water use can be your outside landscaping. And because of that, we've noticed that with water rates going up, people are much more incentivized to do something to reduce that water use, because that means their bill will go down, even if it's just slight. It's one thing if you see a school that has become more efficient, maybe you don't know exactly what they've done on the inside unless they've traded out their landscape. Whereas if you tell someone at their home, take out your grass and replace it with this water-wise landscaping, that's something that a lot of people can see. So your neighbors will drive by and go, oh, what are you doing with your lawn? What's happening to your lawn? And that's a really good way for us to reach out to people. There's a lot of potential for influence. There's a lot of potential for you to spread the word, but also The youth of today and our community has really become aware of long-term issues. You need to have enough today, but you also need to have enough for 50 years from now. And I think it's important that people realize that the choices that you're making today, while they may not have a direct effect upon you right now, they will echo down the line at some point. So the water that you're saving today, while may not seem like a huge deal, it really will impact your children, your grandchildren, and I know that's a grandiose idea to think about, but I think it's important with environmental issues, and especially with water. One little choice can have a huge effect on everyone, and I think it's important for people to realize that.
And so it's important to look ahead at different projects and different supplies and be proactive, because you can't just wait until there's a drought to do something about it. You need to be proactive, and we live in a desert in San Diego, so especially here we need to always be thinking that it's just the time between the droughts. We need to be conserving and thinking about new supplies.
The value of the water as it gets more and more scarce becomes greater and greater and greater, and we typically don't run into those supply and demand issues like you do for other things. The water that you get, that you need at your home for bathing and cleaning and drinking and irrigating, you need that. You've got to have that, and the value of it will go up and up and up as it gets scarcer and scarcer and scarcer, and you start to see that, and the paradigm in California will change, that the price of water will go up. You really don't want to waste anything. It makes no sense to waste anything. Why would you do that? Nothing. If you're wasting it, it's not sustainable. The point being is not to make using the water evil. It's not evil to use the water. It's not a bad thing. Let's just not waste it.